Alrighty, welcome back, guys. Today we have a banger episode incoming. Oscar, do you want to introduce yourself, a little bit about your company and what we're going to talk about today?
Yeah, 100%. My name's Oscar. I run a marketing company called Strike Copy. Leo and we sat down and spoke probably about a year ago now, just about obviously where things were at in the business, kind of how we were scaling and growing, and some unlocks that we'd received then. And I think honestly, this is probably around like a year on from that point. So keen to sort of catch up and just update, but yeah, so it's Strike Copy, email and SMS marketing agency for e-commerce businesses. Been running the business for about 4 years now, and recently, obviously, just made some pretty big unlocks that obviously are now bringing some new growth. So, team of 15, growing, all that fun stuff. Yeah,
Yeah, I think it's a good opportunity to chat because obviously last time we talked, obviously that was a bit about the unlocks that you had going from a
yeah,
little bit more 0 to 1. And
yeah,
then now it's like the updated version where you've already had a working ad funnel for a while. You're obviously
yeah,
scaling up your team up to 15 now. And
hmm
there's a ton of insights that come not from like figuring it out at the start, but almost
hmm
having to continually refigure out these new breakthroughs that
yep,
will
yep.
continually get you to the next level. So yeah, what's been happening like since we last talked? I think the last update was you're just broken through to a decent revenue level, and then I'm not sure exactly where you're at, but your ads
hmm
just started working, I believe,
Yep,
and
yep,
you just added maybe like a 30 grand, 40 grand a month boost at that point.
yep,
Um,
yep.
and then yeah, I'm not sure how long it's been. Maybe it's been like 6, 12 months. I don't even know. But yeah,
Yep.
what's the update? What's been happening?
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I think it was around sort of exactly kind of this time, or maybe a little bit later in the year last year. So, oh man, update. So yeah, like you said, when we spoke, that was really the first time in which we kind of, I guess, cracked paid ads. To be honest, it's the first time in which we'd ever kind of tried paid ads as well. I know you're on my ass for a good minute about that. Obviously, just getting paid ads actually up and running. And it's funny how that works. Finally, when you take the step, obviously the advice pays off. Funny that. So that's kind of where we were. And obviously, we'd been a couple months kind of into that, obviously seeing leads coming through. And then from that point moving forward, really our whole strategy was essentially just based around exactly that, which was obviously run the paid ads. We were running a very sort of cut and dry kind of lead magnet strategy at the time, it still is working really, really well for us, where essentially the funnel is we get leads to opt in for some sort of lead magnet, and then obviously we have a team of appointment setters that go through and are basically getting in contact with every single lead until we can get a specific yes or no. And that's working great, and it's still working great to this day. And so sort of towards the back end of last year, what we were doing is sort of scaling and growing that way. I guess we weren't so much really scaling the ad spend. It was more so just keeping the client acquisition consistent. And because we have such good retention, obviously the company kind of just naturally scales the more clients that you take on. We didn't really have to sort of press the ad spend too much.
Mm.
And yeah, it was a lot of sort of systems and operations towards the back end, because obviously Q4, especially for our industry, is a really, really big industry. And that requires obviously a lot of attention in terms of, hiring the right team members, making sure everything goes smoothly for all of the clients as well. So sort of November, December last year, we kind of, I guess, tapered back off of the ad side of things and really just kind of just focused on building those internal systems, and then obviously creating now a new strategy for the year that we're in now, which is obviously 2025. So sort of just kept that running. To be honest, sort of stayed around kind of similar revenue levels, but I was sort of happy with that as we were kind of building the internal foundations of the actual business. And then leading into this year, essentially we started the year running the exact same funnel and obviously growing and scaling, hovering around the 80 to sort of 90 mark-ish, which was going really, really great. And then I guess the recent sort of unlock that we've made recently has kind of just been switching, I guess, the way in which we approach it. So we still run with lead magnets. We're in the process right now of just creating an absolute banger lead magnet, which Leah and I are going to talk about, probably off camera, so no one goes and steals my stuff. But essentially, really, what I found myself doing was taking a lot of calls of client prospects that were essentially just unqualified. We've got a course, we launched that, did quite well. And a lot of the leads that were coming were obviously interested in the course, which is great, but it's just not worth, in my opinion, spending a 30 to 45 minute sales call on, selling, a $1,600 product. Obviously you want to be talking to the more qualified stuff. So essentially, sort of long story short, we basically packaged together a really good one-time offer. And now sort of our funnel is focusing on getting clients through on some sort of paid offer. just increasing our buyer pool essentially, which allows us to spend a lot more money on ads, because now what we're not trying to sort of be profitable in the ads. It's more so just go break even, or I guess spend as much as we can to acquire as much as we can. But really, obviously, where the revenue comes is because we have great retention. So it's on the back end, it's on the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth month. So the main thing that we sort of had to clean up and kind of how we're scaling now is, first of all, get really clear on our financials, because you can't scale ads if you don't know what you're spending and what you're returning and what your LTV is. Otherwise, you're just basically up a creek without a paddle. You don't know where you're going. You just have no direction at all. So it's really fixing the financials, packaging together a really good offer that allowed, I guess, us to acquire paid customers at scale. So then obviously we can go and then upsell those customers, because obviously it's general marketing principle that the easiest customers to sell to are the ones that have already paid you. And that's kind of where we're at now. So it's really sort of this growth phase where we're taking a lot of these one-time projects, now just kind of just waiting for those conversion cycles to lap over, where they go and obviously pay us for a second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth month. And yeah, really growing that way at the moment. And, obviously that comes with its own set of challenges. And it's, again, at every season, you're kind of forced to look at the parts in your business that aren't performing as well, and just kind of really, I guess, maintaining like a posture of humility, where it's like, all right, this is going great, but where can I sort of tweak and improve? And obviously constantly have that kind of be your frame of reference. But yeah, we're kind of just living that out now, and kind of just walking it out, and kind of just making changes as we need to, testing the offers, testing the ads, testing the funnels. But yeah, I hope that kind of answered your question.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good update for everyone as well. And it also, I think a big value of even what's going on here is that giving everyone an insight into what it's actually like running an ad funnel that is performing at, above a decent level of spend, like beyond the initial phase of like, okay, I'm just trying to figure out something that's working, and then basically pushing past that is really all you need to go into as someone who's running like a boutique firm, pretty much, because you don't really want to onboard that much more than like 10 to 15 clients a month. Like, you'd probably freak out if you'd had generated any more than that. But what it does is it gives that kind of behind the scenes to specifically something where obviously you had the lead magnets cooking, and that was like your initial breakthrough. But what typically happens is that you'll have something working for a while, and then it will fatigue, and then you have to do something else, or it's just going to stop working. And you also mentioned something interesting about the quality of the leads that are coming through as well. Because I know a lot of people, number one, if they get bad leads from a funnel, a lot of times you'll just kind of complain and just say, oh, these leads are unqualified, rather than trying to downsell them. And that's kind of one way to approach it. But then number two is not only having the downsell, but also being able to just make a new thing, but just like basically making a new ad funnel and not being too tied into what was working before. And I honestly think that is a massive mistake. I see it all the time. Like, you launch with something, you get too attached to it, and you're like, oh, this is my thing. And then you get attached to it and it burns ad spend and you're losing money. But just because of for whatever reason, like, you get attached to it and then you don't pivot. And it absolutely kills you. Like, I was talking to a guy the other day, lost like 30 grand on his ad funnel in a month, because he was spending 30 grand a month. He lost like 30 grand. I was like, dude, what are you doing? Like, you got to basically turn this whole thing on its head. And then ended up having a breakthrough. He's added like 160 grand in new MRR in the last 60 days, which is absolutely insane. But that's what happens when you actually fix the funnel. So I'd be curious, in terms of the new funnel, what have been a couple of the biggest levers that you think are bringing in better quality leads compared to before?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, it's tailoring your funnel, obviously, to have good friction. That's the most important part. Like, not all friction is bad friction. Now, obviously, you don't want to make it difficult for customers to book a call with you, but at the same time as well, within the actual funnel itself, you need to be making sure that at every step, you're weeding out people that you don't want to be on the call with, right? And what that means is, obviously, you're paying a lot more for a call. So, our cost per call is quite high, but of the leads that are coming to the call, that are essentially ready to buy, because at every step, we've made sure to have those specific qualifiers in there. So that's calling out specifically the revenue level you require on the ad. Then again, on the VSL, making that the first thing. It's like, hey, if you don't do X amount of revenue, don't keep watching. Don't keep, like, this is not for you. It will not work. We will reject your call. Then obviously in the type form, where before they submit, then again, it's at every step, just basically making sure that you have qualifiers. And so the really realistically, the only people that are ever getting to that call stage are people that are right now our ideal target market. They know our brand. They know they're qualified. They know our offer as well because we reveal everything, and they know how much it costs as well, right? So all of their objections have essentially been handled within the sales process, and this is really then becomes an order taking call. Now, obviously that obviously within competitive markets there is still sort of like sales stuff that kind of needs to go on within those calls as well. And some clients require things like audits and whatnot, and they want us to look at their account. We're happy to do that as well, but it just means that we're not really wasting any time with clients booking on the calendar that we're just never going to close anyway. And I guess that was my biggest thing. That was, I guess, the most important switch that I had to make, because I just found myself, like, it's great. You wake up and you had a massive sort of day of calls, and our calendar's packed as well. But of 5 or 6 calls, you might only talk to 2 to 3 qualified leads, right? Now, it doesn't seem like a problem until that's an every single day thing, because not only are you sacrificing that 30-minute slot that the client has booked, but it's all the time around it as well that you need to prepare for the call and the time to wind down as well. And if you're wasting and basically like throwing 3 to 4 hours a day down the bin, wasting time on qualified calls, like that will kill your business faster than anything, because that's time that you need to be spending towards, okay, doing better marketing assets, actually developing better offers and things like that, really. So the only people that gets the calls now are essentially really highly vetted. And it's just being very transparent as well. I'd probably say that's another thing too. On all of our ads, all of our VSLs are very transparent about the clients that we work with, the results that we get, how much everything costs. And I think in like agency market in general, that is something that I'm finding right now is really resonating with prospects, because there is so much BS out in the market. There's so many people making claims. Every business under the sun that's doing some sort of revenue has been burnt by some sort of agency. So in order to actually stand out, you can't be making these vague, oh, we'll do this for your brand and this and that. You need to get hyper specific and you go, here's what we're going to do. Here's how we've done it. Here's how much it costs. And here's what we guarantee. These are the exact brands that we work with. And basically our funnel now has become the sales process. So really the call is just kind of that final check of the box. But it's that good old convergence of marketing and sales, like we always used to yap on about. It's undefeated, man. It's good. But I'd say probably those are the main 2 things. I think it's being extremely transparent and also making sure that you're protecting your time as well, and just being willing to spend more for a call if it means the calls you're getting are going to be more qualified, right?
Yeah, I think that's a big thing that a lot of people aren't really, not that they're not open to it, but a lot of people are definitely afraid of spending that bit extra in terms of the call cost, and a bit extra because you are adding the friction of having all these qualifying questions in the funnel. But I think at the end of the day, you're just trying to run a financially efficient process in terms of how you're spending all your time, and where your dollars are going. So if you can spend a bit more on the front end instead of having to spend a bit more on the back end in terms of time, just making sure all those leads are hyper qualified, that's a lot better. And I think another thing that has a massive impact on that for you specifically is the offer and the way that you've kind of gone about building that, not necessarily from scratch, but you've gone about building the offer in a bit of a unique way to what is going on in the market. So do you want to speak to that a bit in terms of like the level of leads you've been able to attract, literally just because of the messaging and how you're speaking to the market? And obviously that has to do with the BS out there, and also just how valuable your offer has to be in order to get good leads.
Yeah. I think, now especially, more than ever, you can't just have some, it comes back to a market sophistication thing where it's like everyone's got a crazy claim. Everyone's got all of that. It's not enough to just say, hey, this is what we're going to do and we're going to do it for you, because everyone's making the same claim. And people have been burnt by that claim as well. So again, it comes back to and without getting sort of to the specifics of what's included within the offer, whatever, you can sort of, it really comes back down to, again, making the goal and the purpose. We've priced it in such a way and included so many things where it is so ridiculously valuable for what's actually included, right? And the reason that's important is because, and it comes back to, again, the ethos behind running the paid ads, which is we're not trying to get super profitable on that first point of purchase. It's like, we know our CAC is X, Y, and Z, and our cost to acquire is this, and then obviously our fulfillment costs are this. It's like we might only go slightly profitable, and I'm even happy to go break even on that first purchase. But in order to do that, you need to know what the average client is going to continue to go on to spend. Because if we know we keep a client for 12 months on average, then although within the first month we might only get a 1x ROAS. If you actually calculate that out over the course of the client's lifetime value, it ends up being, ridiculously profitable. You just have to know your numbers to know that that is coming, even though it's not here right now. Eventually, if we just keep acquiring all of these customers, they're going to continue to spend and spend and spend and spend. So I think it's that it's obviously making the offer so good, first and foremost, that, and pricing it in a way that is so attractive to clients, ultimately knowing that we're not really trying to make a ton of money off of it. We're just trying to get people in the door once they're in the door. And obviously the way that you do that is by obviously beating your market on price and what you include within the offer as well. So those two things, I think it's obviously pricing very reasonably and even being willing to drop your pricing on a front-end cold traffic offer and including more things that's objectively more valuable than what the rest of the market is offering. So then it just becomes an immediate no-brainer. It's like, well, if I can do this for less and better and more, like immediately you sort of stick out. But again, you can only do that if you know your numbers, because otherwise you're just running a break-even funnel and there's no point. You might as well turn it off, right? But yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. I mean, number one, it's amazing what you can achieve when you actually know your numbers. Because there's a lot of people they completely dick around with that.
Yeah.
It's absolutely hilarious. Particularly in Australia. I was talking to Milan about this the other day. I was like, dude, you talk to companies in Australia that don't know what Hyros is.
Yes.
A lot of times they won't know what their ROAS is. They won't know like what their lead to booking rate is. They won't know what their lead to sale rate is. Like all these things that are so fundamental to being able to actually turn a profit and even know what you're meant to be focusing on a day-to-day basis are just completely invisible. And when that's happening, like the thing I always like to say is that it's literally like you're trying to travel through fucking space using an old compass to try and figure out where to go. Like you're literally floating through the abyss with absolutely zero clue about what is necessary in order to make money here, which is terrible.
Yeah, and I say this from a position as well of not being this like, oh, like we've got it all sorted, this and that. Like this was my story of like, oh no, I didn't do that for so long. Like I didn't have that, locked in, funnel tracking and, systems and numbers and all that kind of stuff. And that ended up in a place where you get burnt by it because, if you don't track your expenses, you don't track what you're spending, you don't track your LTV and all your really important numbers, what ends up eventually happening is you just have these big, massive blowout months where, oh my gosh, I spent this amount on advertising, this amount on contractors, and then this bill hit as well, and I had to pay this tax bill. And then you just completely blow over and you're like, oh my goodness, like what is going on? And then eventually that kind of brings you to a point where you're like, oh, I actually don't know what I'm spending, how much a client is paying. I'm just running this like a fly-by-night type of business. And then eventually for me, it's like, and I think everyone kind of in their business journey reaches this point. Like you go from running this sort of like just a bit of a kind of cowboy operation, whatever, we're closing deals. Like, oh no, now we've got to like actually get serious about the business, where it's like we need to either want to do one of two things and like just aggressively scale it or shut it down. That's it. Like, and it sounds extreme, but at the end of the day, it's like you got to be doing everything within your power to grow the company, because if the company's not growing and you're stagnant, that's the worst place to be. The worst place to be is a company that's stagnant, stale, and just like not really growing, because you just lose all motivation as a founder to keep going. So for us, it was like, and for me, like it was really a thing of like, okay, like I know where this can go. I know the potential, and it's going to be painful initially, but we're going to spend all of our resources actively trying to grow it. And if in the process we shut down, at least we know we went out swinging, And I think for me, it's just been constantly coming back to that mindset where every month, okay, we can't just have another same month. Like we've got to be pushing it. And that's not out of like a greed thing or anything like that. It's literally just out of the case of like, this is what a healthy business is. So this is what we have to keep pushing for. It's like a healthy business grows. A business with a good offer, it just grows. So the mindset we need to adopt is like, all right, we need to be either growing aggressively or changing something. And if in the process of growing aggressively, things cave in, well, then it just wasn't the right business and we'll go again, Yeah.
Yeah, it speaks to a
I hope
good
that was
point,
valuable.
particularly. Yeah, no, 100%, because it speaks to a really good point that, and you mentioned this before as well, in terms of the amount of value that you're capturing on the front end and the amount of kind of not risk that's involved with that, but there's obviously different ways you can go about converting cold traffic. Like some people like to charge a ton up front and they're like, yeah, I'm going to capture a bunch of value up front. I'm going to charge like 10K plus on cold, which is one way of going about it. And it is viable. It's just a different strategy to driving in as many customers as you possibly can, or as many clients as you possibly can.
Yep.
Servicing them really well, and they're not really looking to capture value on the front end, which personally, I like that strategy. And the reason is because when you do a really like hardcore sales process to try and sell something really expensive on the front end,
Yep.
when you get that client in, they're not often as good of a client as someone who's received absolutely outsized amounts of value from you, whether that's through a free product, through a lead magnet, or through a paid product that's, you know, pretty reasonably priced, and then looking to kind of choose your moment to capture value by just having the client for a really, really long time. And, you know, obviously you can have clients for a long time if you charge big upfront as well, especially if you're providing a huge amount of value. But I think particularly for certain types of businesses, different stuff makes sense at different times. Like if you're a type of company that you can drive, like you can charge someone 10K and then produce 100, 200 grand of value immediately or very quickly, of course, go for a big ticket up front. But I think if you're the type of business where the market is pretty competitive, a lot of people are running ads to the same offers, and you're looking for a way to stand out and just get something that's going to beat what the market's currently at, then you want to look at, okay, what's actually valuable? Like, what does the client actually want? They want transparency. They want to be able to trust. They want to be able to not get romped on agency fees. And they want someone who's just going to actually look to fucking help my business instead of looking to capture value. And I think particularly when you've got some big competitors that may be running ads or whatever, the way that it ends up getting looked at is, I always get these ads. I always get these outreach emails. I always get this people trying to fucking sell to me and hassle me with these things where they're trying to capture so much value up front. So if you can come in with that different angle, it gets received quite well. But the caveat there is the risk of not looking to make money in the first purchase, which is not what most people are comfortable with. So how have you gone about that? Obviously, you front a good amount of ad spend every month. You know, obviously super profitable, but I know a lot of business owners who they're like worried about ads, and this was kind of you at the start as well. You're like worried about fronting the ad spend, and you're worried, when am I going to recoup this? So how did you get over that? I'm sure that'll be valuable to speak to.
Yeah, I think, I mean, initially, like when you first start something new, you have to come to the point of like, okay, you just have to do it if you're worried regardless. It's like, if you know that it's the right thing to do, accept that it's going to be hard, accept that you're probably going to lose money, and just do it anyway. And I think that was my biggest thing. It's like, you don't have to feel good to do something. Like, you don't have to feel good about it to basically take the action step. It's just starting first, activating it, and then from there, figuring out as you go. Because if you don't, you fall into this lie of like, oh yeah, everything's got to be perfect before I start. So that'd be my first encouragement, would be like, start first, then figure it out as you go. Because once you've started and activated, oh, now I'm spending, now I have to get good because like this is going out of my bank account every single day. And I think as well, it's just approaching it with, especially paid ads, you have to really, I guess, approach them with, I guess, a testing kind of mindset. It's like initially when you're testing offers and you haven't tried paid ads before, you just have to be willing, like, and not saying that you will, but you have to be willing to guys just burn cash. Like, you've got to be willing to be like, all right, I'm going to chuck this $5,000 this month into spend. If I return nothing, well, at least what I walk away is with a valuable lesson on what offers aren't working, what's not going to work, right? And I think just slowly over time, you just get more and more comfortable with it. And I mean, it's as simple as it is. Again, it's just knowing your numbers, where it's like, you can't spend that much if you don't know how much you're returning and how much you're getting back. So before, like, we've scaled up pretty aggressively in the last couple of months, I would always cap sort of the amount that I spend, because that's what I was comfortable with, right? But the reason I was comfortable with that because I didn't know how much I was making versus how much I was spending. Whereas if you looked at it, we were making so much versus what we were spending, it would have made so much sense just to ram the budget. But because you don't know your numbers, you get almost in this like scarcity fear mindset where you're like, oh, well, like I'm got this amount of coming out of my account every day and Facebook's billing me. So I think it's just, again, like, it's so important just to know how much you're spending and know how much you're making and know how much you will make off of the clients you're acquiring in a month. And then also just accepting the fact as well, you're probably, if you haven't started ads, you're going to lose money in the start. And that's an okay thing. That's just like almost like a rite of passage. And it's just kind of like almost like detaching your ego from the business as well, because a lot of the time it's actually not about the money. It's about the fact that people have tied their emotions and their physical state to this business. So if their P&L looks terrible one month, all of a sudden that's a reflection on you and your character, where it's actually not. You've just convinced yourself of that kind of thing. You know what I mean? And that's what I found is too. It's like, oh man, like, it's not actually about the money. It's like you've just associated yourself with someone who has a really successful business. So if your P&L looks crap one month, it's like, oh, then I'm crap. It's like, no, like that's something that you have decided for yourself,
Yeah,
which is a big unlock. Honestly, for me, that was a massive unlock. I'm like, oh, right, like it actually doesn't matter if I have a crap month. Like every person under the sun, every business owner under the sun has had a crap month, and you will have another one. Another one is coming, and that's fine. Like that's all good.
yeah.
Right?
And people don't talk about it as well. Like, there's very rare
Mm-hmm.
that anyone gets on the like, you know what, I haven't got this figured out right now. A lot of times, what
Yeah.
you'll hear is like,
Yeah.
they'll not say anything for 6 months while they're having this massive problem. And then at the end, they'll be like, oh, yeah, by the way, I had this massive problem, but I figured it out now. So it's all good because I'm actually a genius, And that's kind of how it gets, almost gets twisted. But I mean, trust me, dude, like I obviously have an interesting insight to a lot of businesses just through clients and through friends and stuff who people just often reveal intimate details about their businesses, which I obviously won't reveal publicly, but I think a lot of times you'd be very surprised just how brutalized you can get at different times. And people that seem like they have it all together often are just kind of really good at pretending like they don't.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you spoke to a really good point there as well in terms of the perceived risk of like spending money on ads and not making money back. I always like to say, it's actually more profitable to spend $5,000 on ads and lose all of that money because now you're getting so much data about what's working, what's not working. You're building your skills, you're starting to understand it, compared to, let's say you just kind of freak out, you tense up all the time because you're afraid of launching on ads. That's where you're actually losing, you're atrophying, your company's dying, you're not growing as fast as what you want to be. And a good example of the complete opposite of that is we had a client come to us like 3 months ago. They had zero paid ads. And I said, oh, like what budget do you want to deploy? I was like, what can you risk? Like, what can you afford to lose comfortably? Because it is a gamble at the end of the day. And you want to be very conscious of the amount that you're risking because it could potentially go badly. And I like to be very clear about that as well. It's like, don't ever put an amount into paid ads that you can't afford to lose because, things go wrong. But anyway, so he launched with like a 20K a month budget, or maybe it was like a 10K a month budget. Went super profitable. He basically ended up saying, oh, geez, this is pretty good. Like paid ads is pretty good. And basically gave me the green light to start scaling it. Fast forward, third month, we're generating 180K a month just from paid, and it's a really, really profitable business. So it's like on one side, you have tensing up, freaking out, and not getting any leads from paid traffic, which is typically one of the best acquisition channels for any business. On the other side, you have kind of like there's obviously a line between being gung-ho and tracking and financials and all that stuff. But basically just saying, screw it, like we're going to have a real crack here. And on this side, you get a bunch of leads and a bunch of data. And it's very rare because if something's not working, you can figure that out within about 2 weeks versus just getting no results. So I'm curious for you, like obviously you're someone who's generated a ton of leads from outbound, cold email, I'm not sure if you've done much organic, but you've kind of got a good view of outbound, cold calling, and ads. So what's kind of your updated opinion on what the best acquisition channels are?
I love this. This is a really good question because I can talk exactly to that because a lot of our strategy prior to us running paid ads was exclusively outbound. And that's kind of, I guess, my trade, I guess you could say, as a business person. I think it's interesting because every business person kind of has their niche that they're good at. Some guys are product guys, some are sales guys, some are marketing guys, some are really good at just hammering them. And kind of, you can see kind of how people adapt their business kind of based on what they're good at. I'd say for me, just that sort of real, with some early mentors and stuff that I had, that outbound sales style was kind of the way in which I was taught to generate leads in business. So for me, that transitioning from that to ads was very interesting because it goes from essentially, and you believe it's essentially like, oh, well, we're doing all of this for free and signing all these clients, to now we're having to sort of front the spend first, not see the results for very long and then get it in. But I think the biggest mindset shift that I had to make was every single marketing funnel and channel has a dollars in, dollars out equation. There is, even if you're doing outbound, that is not free. For example, if you want to run like a high like a really, really high volume cold email funnel, that's going to run you like $1,500, $2,000 a month with software tools, scraping tools, like inbox managers. Like that in itself, you're still spending. And when you switch your mindset from like, okay, like I'm getting these leads for free, it's like, no, there's still a dollars in, dollars out equation. You're just basically now changing the mechanism. It's still exactly the same though, where it's like we put X amount in and then we get X amount out. It doesn't actually matter. Even if you're a freelancer, you don't even have a client and you've never done business before and you're cold calling, right? There is still a cost associated with that. Now, in that instance, like the cost is obviously your time, but it's still, your time is still worth something. So you can still technically map it out to a dollars in then dollars out equation, right? And it's just, all it is essentially is just getting comfortable with the fact that all you're doing is you're just changing the medium. You're not now spending to acquire because you're already spending to acquire, even if you don't know it. You're just changing the medium and you might be spending a little bit more. But again, it comes back to, if you know your numbers, all it is a dollars in and dollars out equation. And that's it. That's it. So it's like having that unlock where it's like, every marketing channel is essentially the same. It's just getting what we have in front of other people. It's just figuring out your numbers and knowing, okay, we're spending this much here and getting this much out. So if we can replicate that the same on paid ads, it's not only going to produce equal results, it's going to be better, because not in my opinion, I know paid ads is much more scalable than any other channel. You know, with cold email, you're limited by inboxes and leads that you can actually go through and scrape, where paid ads is essentially infinite. You can always spin up new offers. You can always spend more to acquire. And as long as your numbers don't completely blow out, you can just infinitely sort of keep progressively scaling it. And then the bottleneck really in every business should always become fulfillment, I believe. And then you solve for that problem. And then that's kind of how you grow. You go through these cycles of like growth, and then okay, now we're kind of still growing but focusing like on the weeds as like of the fulfillment and the systems for the team as the founder, and then we'll really spin up a new offer, bang, go again. And that's kind of these big cycles that kind of get you, you know, to big company status eventually, right?
Yeah, sooner or later. So that's funny. Then,
Mm-hmm.
so obviously you're a person where at the start, well, not at the
Mm-hmm.
start, but probably, I don't even know, when would it be? 18 months ago, you're probably
Yeah.
just holding your finger over the trigger of paid ads and probably just not getting
Yeah.
cranking as fast as
Mm-hmm.
what you maybe could have. So what would you say to yourself if you were in that position where you're someone who doesn't run ads, maybe you get leads from organic or outbound or whatever, because there are a ton of people like that. So what would you say to yourself if you could speak to yourself back then?
Man, it's a good question, because I was there and I know what that's like. It's yeah, let me have a think about this one. I empathize and understand with like that because it's not only the spend, it's the whole concept behind like giving money to platforms, using the platforms, coming up, creating the ads, doing the funnels, like all, like it's a lot of stuff, like, and then you've got to pay for it as well. So it's like it's a lot of stuff to kind of manage, but you know, it's as simple as just like the word of encouragement is you just got to do it. Like you just have to like, there's these certain things, and like it's constant as well. Like, you know, I'm sure that'll be the next thing for us, whether it's like a hiring decision or whatever, where it's like, it feels really tense and uncomfortable, but you know, sort of just deep down that it's the right action to take. And so like, you kind of just have to first, and this has kind of always been my ethos. It's like, you first activate it, you first do it, and then figure it out as you go. Because otherwise you just end up in this space where nothing ever changes and you're just protecting you and your patch. And I think like the most dangerous place you can be in is when you're just protecting what you've got, you know, and not willing to expand, because then you won't expand. If you don't expand, eventually obviously the market's going to beat you out and you will go under. So
Yeah,
I don't know.
particularly
It's one of those things.
agency.
Just like just do it. You know what I mean? Like, you kind of just got to go. You know?
Yeah, if you're an agency or
Yeah.
you're some sort of service-based business where there is an element of churn, no matter what you do,
Mm.
like clients take it in-house, even if you're delivering really well, like no client
Yeah.
is forever. I always like to say that.
Yes.
If you
True.
park the bus and you're not able to acquire clients, it is an absolutely deadly flywheel of you don't know where your next deal is coming from. Maybe 1 month your
Yeah.
referrals are slow.
Yeah.
Then a main client churns. Then you have a big tax bill.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh shit, I need to get deals now. And that's when
Yeah.
you go into scarcity mode. You have to kind of hold on to your clients. You join a sales call and you're like, oh, well, I really need this deal. So I have to maybe sell a client that I shouldn't
Yes.
usually sell, because usually I'd probably turn them away. And then you're all like, this is really bad. And you're taking on clients you shouldn't. And then you want to destroy your business because you're dealing with all these clients. You don't have that much cash. And it's kind of that negative, flywheel of
Yeah.
death.
Yeah.
And it all comes from just viewing paid ads or viewing that next action that you know you need to take as some big bad monster.
Mm-hmm.
When in reality, it's like you lose $3,000 on ads. What happens? You lose $5,000
Mm-hmm.
on ads. What happens? Like I said, there's literally a guy that lost 30 grand on ads, and he was still like, "How do I fix this?" And then he did fix it. Now he's signing 80 grand a month in brand new revenue.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like,
Mm-hmm.
what's on each side of this equation? On one side, death spiral. On the other side, maybe I lose some money in the process, but I eventually get something that's going to work and
Mm-hmm.
consistently generate me clients.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's that. I guess the next logical thing to kind of chat about would be, so you've got something working, or you've kind of been in the process of getting something working, then finally getting multiple breakthroughs when you're kind of going through these scaling periods, and then you plateau and you're kind of figuring shit out, and then you scale again. So what have been some of the biggest bottlenecks that you've had to overcome in that process?
Mm. Mm. I think it's it's a really good question. I think for me, honestly, and like it goes beyond, I guess, like tactical business stuff. It's probably just like learning how to manage your emotions. And I say this all the time because people ask me, "Oh, what's like your biggest business thing and this and that? Like, what's a piece of advice?" Like, you've really, as a founder and as a business person, you got to learn to manage your emotions, because it's like you won't make logical decisions if you are emotionally tied to the outcomes of your business. It's like you have to learn to separate your emotions and then business, and they need to stay entirely separate. Otherwise, you just end up in this place where it's like you will never make rational decisions because your head is just constantly going and you're constantly thinking of the worst. Like, you just need to be able to separate the two. And then from there, you can objectively see your business from what it is. And just being able to have the humility to objectively see the business for what it is, like without with no bias lens. And I think honestly, that's probably one of the downfalls of social media. It's like, because everyone's kind of, especially in the business space, is projecting this like posture of like me and I'm so good. It's like, no, like you are like, and that's kind of what I'm coming to realize now as well, even with some of like the older business guys that are kind of, in their 30s and 40s, that I'm kind of, getting a bit of mentorship from as well. It's like, you just realize that there's just an element of time involved. And the reality is, if you're 22, 23, younger than that, you just haven't been in the game for nearly long enough to actually know what's required. Right. And I think for me, that was a big unlock, because it's like, when you just have to be able to separate the emotions from the business first and foremost, and not think that you're better than you are, because it's only when you do that you can actually step back and look at things objectively and then make the right decisions. Because it's like, if your ego's up in the cloud, you won't look at the suffering parts of your business. And if your emotions are tied to the business, you'll just be too scared to do anything, So it's a process though. Like, it takes time. Like, it's not an instant thing. So yeah, that's sort of like more like emotional, I guess, like mental kind of unlock. Another, I'd say more tactical in terms of like actual business principle. Man, probably just a big one, honestly, is understanding that probably not everything's going to be perfect. Because I think we used to talk about this. Like, obviously, we care really, really deeply about client results as well. And that has obviously been the most important. And that's great as long as it doesn't inhibit every single other aspect of the business as well. Because if a requirement of your company is that your results are 10 out of 10 for every single client before you scale, you'll never scale. And I think as well, that transparency obviously helps us on the front end in marketing, helps us scale. Like, I'm very open about the fact that it's like, yes, every business has flaws. Every business, like we make errors on the emails sometimes that we send out, and we have those parts. But for me, it was like making sure that, yes, although there might be some certain things in the business that aren't perfect, you don't need to first get it perfect to scale. And treating them like two separate parts of the business, because that's exactly what they are. It is your operations and then your marketing, and one is not dependent on the other. That being said, obviously your client results need to stay at the foundation, but you always have to kind of, especially as a growing, scaling company, things, especially on the operation side, are never going to be 100% oily, squeaky clean. You're always going to have a bad client. You're always going to have a nagging, person that's not happy with some work. Like, that is not an indicator that you need to slow down what you're doing, because sometimes, and I would go as far to say as a lot of the time, that would even fall back on the client. Like, if the client is too finicky, they're too, want to be too involved with, I guess, like revisions processes and things like that, they're going to limit their own growth, and that falls back on them. So it's really just treating the separate channels as they are, and not having that, the operation side, and that being perfect being a prerequisite for actually being able to scale is probably the most important thing. Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like, I know a lot of marketers that don't get results every time. but I also know a lot of marketers that pretend like they do,
Yeah.
and that lack of transparency in the market just ruins it for everyone. But it also makes it super easy for someone that's transparent to be able to say, look, if you want to know what's going to lead to failure in this project, I can tell you exactly because I've done this hundreds of times.
Yep.
And it's all of these reasons. And some of those reasons
Yep.
are human error on our part. And I think more experienced clients will always understand that when they know, yeah, dude, I mean, I've got people in my company too. And sometimes John's girlfriend breaks up with him and he has a tish on the job and he doesn't show up to work on Tuesday because of whatever, and things go badly. But understanding that you can have that transparency between you and your client because you're both humans at the end of the day. And no one's really trying to capture too much value from the other person. Like, you're trying to play a positive sum game here where I make you enough money that I can charge you a fee that puts food on my table, and I can do so in a way that's profitable for me. And that's how good business should occur. But again, to your point about the comparison stuff, that's just not what people do in kind of like the digital marketing, online marketing industry. And that leads to just terrible results all around. And then you look online and you see Cardinal Mason going to Cancun, and he's printing hundreds of thousands of dollars in profit a month from like a course business. And you're like, oh my God, I'm the worst because I'm 22 and my business isn't making 600 grand a month USD, and then you think that you're not good enough and that you need to then take all these different actions, or you need to pivot, or you need to do this or do that. And that's what ends up killing you, because it's like this flywheel and all this stuff's happening at once and you don't know what to do. You don't know who to trust. And to your point, at the end of the day, it comes back to that like inner conviction of what you were trying to do and why you started this business in the first place.
Yes.
And for me, that happened to me quite badly, actually, because I was like, oh my God, it's never enough. And I remember like hitting all-time high revenue months. And I literally told Cal, my brother, I said, I have never been more dissatisfied with my situation than right now. And I just made the most amount of money I've ever made in a month. And I was just like, this sucks, man. And the thing that worked for me in that moment was going all the way back, like I said, to why I even started in business in the first place, which was to get $1 million before I had a kid. Because I wanted to have that financial security, so that if I want to go to footy practice, or if I want to go coach the team, that I don't have to rely on anyone. I can go do that. But like I said, when you get into business and all these things pop up, in terms of like comparing yourself, it's like, oh my God, like I should be doing this, I should be doing that. But there is a massive breakthrough on the other side of that, when you realize what you're doing and why you're doing it, and who you are and why you are who you are. And doubling down on that is actually the thing that gets you the better business results, because now you can be more transparent, you can take a longer term approach, etc. And if I don't grow the business to $1 million a month in the next day, it's actually not going to be the end of the world, and it's actually all going to be okay. Which sounds so dumb, because people don't say that online, because everyone's like, yeah, push. You need to scale. You need to buy this. You need to buy this. You need to buy this program. You need to get this person in your business so you can scale, and all that stuff. That's definitely not what I want to represent in the market. And it sounds like it's the same for you. And it's a good point to touch on as well. Thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, it's super important, man. And like, I think eventually every business owner comes to that point, especially young. I think it's especially prevalent with young business people who kind of get into this game. Maybe they've sort of fallen for some like lifestyle marketing, that kind of thing, and you're sort of chasing this bag essentially. But you ultimately reach this point where you come to the realization that like the money in itself and the pursuit of money in itself is ultimately meaningless if you don't have some sort of purpose. If there's no reason as to why you're doing the thing that you're doing, it actually means nothing. And you realize that. And essentially what you find is most people sustain themselves based on this future state, right? So for example, it's like you are happy and content with where you're at because you believe that when you get here, that's when you're going to, and then you get there and then you just set the goalpost further, and you'll sustain your well-being based on the hope that eventually you will reach this point where you're happy and fulfilled. But like eventually you come to like a point of realization where that's not possible. And without sort of taking this, I guess, super spiritual, but a word in Ecclesiastes in the Bible is essentially everything is meaningless. Everything that exists under the sun is ultimately meaningless. And when you like really meditate on that, and you're like, oh, like, hang on a second, that is so true. It's like the pursuit of any one thing, whether it's family, whether it's money, whether it's business, whether it's whatever it is that you enjoy, whether that's a sport, whatever that is for you, these aren't inherently bad things, but if you center your entire being around any individual pursuit of those one things, what you find is that it's just an endless cycle of meaninglessness. It actually ultimately means nothing. And for me, and again, without getting too super spiritual, but the solution to that is obviously faith in God, because I think that's ultimately the source of all truth, and that for me has been super super fulfilling for sure.
Yeah, no, honestly, I would encourage anyone who's listening, if you're in that kind of boat where you're like, damn,
Yeah,
I've been really successful and I don't know what to do,
yeah,
reach out, talk to guys like me, talk to guys like Oscar,
yeah, yeah.
because it's not like when it comes to conversations like that, it's so much bigger than business. It's like,
Yes,
dude, this is your
yes.
life, this is your
What's the
family, this
purpose?
is,
Yeah,
yeah, it's like, this is the shit that actually matters.
yeah,
And obviously, it sounds like we're on a very similar page, but in
yeah,
terms of what I'm trying to do now, it's
yeah.
very much trying to represent this set of beliefs that, yeah, get your money because it's fun, build your
Mm-hmm,
business because it's fun.
mm-hmm.
But as soon as you create that unhealthy relationship with results because you're
Yeah,
doing it, or you're building this business from like a place of insecurity, that
mm-hmm.
is a real slippery slope.
Yes,
Not only because it's bad for you, it's bad for the business, it's bad for your family, it's bad for your health, because you
yep,
get this anxiety as soon as you step away from the desk,
yeah,
and then when you
yeah,
get to the desk, you're not even doing anything because you're just
yep,
doing whatever, and then maybe you don't go out with your partner because you have to work, and then you start working, you don't actually have that much to do, you're just kind of afraid, and you have this scarcity around time because of all this comparison stuff.
mm-hmm.
um, and it goes stupidly
Yeah,
deep, and it's
mm-hmm.
just a result of not actually, like you said, just not having that source of truth, whether that's internally or
Yes,
through some sort of
yes,
spirituality, or you're just
yeah,
not grounded in yourself. um, and it kills you. It
yeah,
kills you. And this,
yeah.
and it's interesting you brought this up as the biggest bottleneck. This actually is the biggest bottleneck
It
for
is.
maybe 80% of founders that I talk to.
Yes,
Like
yes,
yeah, you can have your ad funnel, you can have this, you can have that. That is easily outsourced. It's easily built by yourself if you just learn how to do it. Like there's
yeah,
endless products and services you can purchase, including our own
mm-hmm,
as people that run marketing companies.
mm-hmm.
Um, but if you can't overcome all of those things that are kind of wrapped around it, it's kind of a path to the bottom, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah.
Speaking from someone who's ridden that path up and down many, many times,
Yeah, yeah. And my encouragement to anyone is just like be willing to go on that, like obviously be willing to go on that journey of like seeking truth, of like, oh, what is the ultimate purpose and kind of ultimate meaning, and just be willing to like wrestle with that idea of like, oh man, like what is the ultimate purpose of what I'm doing, and just go deep and just seeking truth. Like, okay, what is purpose? What is the existence? Why do I continue to do this? And obviously you never sort of reach a full kind of understanding here, but it's like, eventually, if you seek truth, like you'll eventually come to a place where you find it, and obviously you'll sustain yourself based off of that, rather than sort of like these fickle kind of fleeting things, because it's ultimately meaningless, and you only have to walk that out for long enough to figure that out, where it's like, if you chase money for, and you see it all the time, it's like dudes on Twitter or whatever, they'll post, like, I've been doing this for 10 years and I've never felt more dissatisfied. But it's like, the answer then, if that's the case, the answer then isn't to go again, because you know that when you reach there, it's ultimately, and it comes just back down to a worldview. But I'll just encourage like anyone, just like, just go on that journey of like seeking out truth. It's like, oh man, like what is true, um, and then eventually you kind of reach this point where you sustain yourself not on these little kind of things that are fleeting, but you got a deeper purpose.
Mm. And it's
Yeah.
so easy because, again, like the marketing in a lot of the stuff that you see online
Mm-hmm.
is very hustle, bro. It's very do this, do that.
Yeah.
Like Hormozy is a good example.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
but I think Hormozy is really misunderstood, because
Yep.
he doesn't typically say like, yeah, you should just work all the time, no matter what, and miss your kid's dance recital for
Yes.
whatever reason. He says that because that's what he wants to do, and if
Yes.
he loves it so much, then bravo. I love that
Yeah.
for him.
Yeah.
And I think the trap that a lot of young guys that I speak to is, um, they see that and they think that's what they should be doing. That's like,
Yep.
oh well, if he works this much, then that means I have to work this much, or I have to do this, and
Yep.
that's what creates that kind of scarcity loop.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, it's just about what works for you.
Yep.
And in the kind of market where everything's built on like, get your mentor,
Yeah.
learn from
Yeah.
this person, pick up this strategy, like you almost want to bring on this outside influence so much.
Yeah.
Um, but the only thing that actually helps you is just kind of just neglecting all that outside influence and then coming up with something yourself in terms of like a
Yep.
life thesis or kind of what you're
Yeah.
talking to.
Yeah.
And then bring it back to the funnel stuff and the ad stuff.
Yeah. Yep.
That's when you come up with the best ad stuff anyway, because you come up with offers and you come up
Yes.
with stuff that is actually valuable for your clients, because you can cut through the noise of whatever's going on in your market, and you can actually say,
Yeah.
this is what is valuable for you. I know this because I speak to all of you,
Mm-hmm.
and this is what you need to do in order to scale. I'm going to provide this at this rate because I know it's super valuable, and that's a part of my, my goal to have great relationships with my clients, because I want you to play a positive sum game with me and we're both going to win, rather than how can I sell a $10,000 course to as many people as I possibly can.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Man, 100%. And on the point of sort of mentioning Hormozy there as well, it's like, I think it's great. Like take business advice from those guys, but just, you have to be selective of the things that you're taking in and just understand where that's coming from. So it's like, yeah, when Hormozy is giving me 30 minutes of bars via a YouTube video on how to sell deals and how to, come up with a no-brainer offer, it's like, take that all on for yourself, because he's in a level where, where it's like, okay, he's done it and he's walked it out. But that's, for me, is the extent in which I would take advice from a guy like Alex Hormozy, where it's like, his business advice, clearly he's their business. But when it comes to life philosophy, it's like, just don't be surprised if you end up depressed when you take advice from someone that's ultimately nihilistic and means and believes that there's no ultimate meaning to anything. It's like, if you adopt that for yourself, you'll find out very true that is just not the case, and you cannot actually walk that out. So it's like, business advice for sure. Life advice on sort of what is ultimate meaning and purpose, like, you can leave that at the door and still take the good parts from what is giving, and I think that's really important.
Yeah, it's like whatever works for you at the end of the day is what's going to work, but you kind of have to figure that out for yourself. But yeah, I mean, switching gears a little bit, because I mean, we could talk about that stuff for forever, pretty much, I imagine.
Yes.
Going back to the tactical side.
Yep.
So with your ad funnel, you've obviously scaled it up many times, hit bottlenecks, hit different stuff. In terms of like the tactical levers that have been huge for you, what are the things that you think have helped you the most in terms of basically building an ad funnel from scratch that is generating how many clients a month? Like,
probably consistent. It's hard to sort of say, because we haven't been running it for that long, but last month we took on 9 new deals. This month we'll probably just go over that. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
and these obviously like just
5 to 15 ideal clients a month is pretty strong.
Yeah. Exactly. So what was the question?
So yeah, what have been the biggest levers in terms of building that funnel from scratch, pretty much?
Man, I think first and foremost is just doing it, like just like executing, be like, all right, cool, we're going to test this. And I think it's just been like really just being adaptable, because it's like, you got to adapt with your market. That's the thing. It's like, you can't run the same offer that was working a year ago today. And you have to get to a point where you accept that, where it's like, okay, I would argue that most businesses are in competitive markets. Even if you're something like plumbing, construction, like every business is objectively competitive. Like anything that's worth selling has people already selling it. And so when you operate in a market like that, you have to basically get to a point where it's like, okay, you need to be willing and adaptable to change according to the market, and don't ever get in this place where you're just going to stick to one thing, because eventually your market will come out and beat you with something better. So I think it was just first accepting that it's like, okay, if in order to, and this is going to continue to happen, I imagine as well, where it's like, okay, cool, we package together this offer and just get it out and test it. Now, obviously it's worked, which is great, but if it didn't, we would go back to the drawing board again, and just being willing to test offers. I think also listening to your market feedback as well is super important. So, I mean, AI makes this so easy these days. Like it is so ridiculously easy to come up with marketing messaging like never before. And I think that's a broader topic on just AI, where it's like, if you aren't tapping into the power, you will get smoked by competitors, because it's just another, like, it's inevitable. AI is inevitable. You're either adopting or getting left behind. That's what it is. Like, regardless of how you feel about it, that's how it is. Whereas it's like, we can do things like, okay, here are all of the sales calls we've had over the last 3 months. Give me a list of 10 common pain points amongst all of them that are common amongst every single call. Great. And then you're going to get basically all of, like, you don't have to do any work. You don't have to listen to anything. You're going to get a list of all of the core things that your market is complaining about actively right now. And then obviously you can go and then tailor your marketing towards that. So I think it's like packaging an offer that your market's actually interested in based on where they're at in pain points. And then, you're just being willing to be adaptable as well. So like, and also being proactive in that as well. So we're not waiting until the funnel turns off. Like and we've talked about this as well. We're already cooking new ideas for partnerships and potential, services that we can add that make sense with our offer. So inevitably, because it is inevitable, when things start to fall off a cliff, bang, we can come out with something fresh that's like ready to go, right? So I think it's just being adaptable to change and then actually listening to your market, because ultimately your customers will tell you what they want to buy. You just got to listen to it, obviously. So I think those two things. Yeah.
That's like, especially the AI piece for me. Like, I don't know how I would do my job without doing that exact process of, like, if I'm writing ads for so many different industries and building funnels for so many different industries, where
it's crazy, man.
You basically need to understand that customer with a great level of intimacy to even get close to writing a good ad. And people often ask me, like, have you ever worked in this niche or this niche? It's like, dude, every single niche, every single offer, every single company, you have to approach that completely individually anyway.
Yeah.
Because if you aren't going to that level of depth with exact customers and exact people that you're trying to attract, you are not going to write a good marketing message.
Yep.
So even just being able to scrape all those sales calls and put all those transcripts into ChatGPT or a Claude AI and basically get full-scale psychoanalysis on those customers and those clients, what they love, what they hate, what they're sick of, the things that they're currently doing that are working, the things they're currently doing that aren't working. You're basically going into the conversation that's inside their head just by proxy of having a ChatGPT thread that is talked to and spoken with, dozens and dozens of those customers. So again, it's like the level of intimacy that you need to hit is completely like, obviously to an extent, like working in a different niche before is helpful, but that's still not enough. And I said this to Milan the other day as well. Like, you guys obviously all run email, and there's so many people that run email. You all run different stuff because you're all trying to work with different customers, and you all have a different ability to attract those customers. You have different funnels running, you have different sales processes, whatever. So what ends up working for you is going to be different because you need to achieve that intimacy with the customer. And if you don't have that, you're just, obviously it's kind of weird to say intimacy with the customer, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Because you need to be close to the customer, and without that, you're kind of screwed.
Yeah, and that in turn obviously builds trust as well, because I think the best hooks that we've found aren't like, we did this for this client and this is the results that we get. It's like it triggers a specific pain point that is ringing in their head right in the moment. It's like, if in the first 3 seconds of an ad, you can call out an active conversation that's already going on in the prospect's mind, like immediately you've got their attention, not by anything, like because you've talked specifically to that problem. And if the ad continues to go on to do that, where it's like, you're struggling with this, you can't do this, you can't do that, it's like, oh, they know me so intimately well. It's kind of like an automatic kind of trust factor that you've already built, because you're explaining and describing their problem better than they can. And it's like, well, if they know the deep problems that I'm struggling with, they probably have the solution for it as well, But yeah, I think it's, again, adaptability is really, really key, because like even for us, it's again, like, and just being proactive, because I think that's probably where I've got caught off guard in the past, is like, okay, something's working, and then and I think it's just like the nature, like honestly, just human nature to like want to kind of kick back and just relax and not actually do anything. But like eventually what ends up happening is it falls off a cliff, and then you don't really start, I guess, adapting and making changes now until you really have to, until you're like forced into a point of pain where you're like, oh, like we got to figure something out. And so it's like, I guess, just kind of foreseeing that now, where it's like, okay, we're running something that's working well. We know ad platforms fatigue. We know offers fatigue. We know basically, competitors are going to come and take our stuff. And that's just the nature of being in competitive markets. That's just how it works. So it's like, how can we start planning now? So as everybody else is playing catch up in the market, we can already have, something ready, live, and bang, we can launch a brand new offer which just 10x better than what anyone else is offering, and kind of just like monopolize that way a little bit. Because that's, and I've been burnt by that a lot, where it's like you just wait too long before you, and then once you reach the point of like, okay, this isn't working anymore, I believe it's too late, because it takes time to get traction on a new offer. It takes time to get everything ramped up again. So that's kind of like a recent, I guess, unlock or insight that I've really adopted, even in like the last 2 months, honestly, where it's like, okay, cool, working great. Like, what's the next thing that we can project? What's the next thing that we can like have ready to go once this starts falling off a cliff? And that's like, I guess, every area of the business as well. It's not even just like marketing and sales. It's like, okay, cool, like we know that obviously the systems are probably going to break down at some point for client fulfillment. So it's like, even though we're not there yet, how can we like put the right people in place, or the right offer, or the right system to like obviously be 10x better than what we need now. But as we start to scale, it means we're not like scrambling to get all the pieces together, you know? So that's an interesting thing that I've been kind of trying to figure out at the moment, you know, is like, how do we just keep innovating? Because they're competitive markets. Like, it's so competitive.
Yeah. As you said, it always is, whether you're selling kebabs or whether you're selling emails, same thing.
Same thing.
But yeah, I was just going to prompt you to go even further. So looking ahead, obviously things have gone pretty comfy cozy right now. What do you foresee are the bottlenecks ahead? Obviously, we discussed tracking a bit off camera, and we can discuss that now if it's helpful for you. But what are you looking for in the next kind of 3 to 6 months?
Yeah, man, it's a good question. I think tracking again, and just get like, because we track already, but it's just getting probably to more granular. Because like, if we can spend more, even though if it means we're not necessarily making more initially, but we can acquire more customers, and I think that's it. Like, just obviously milk what's already working, and just make what is already working better. Because if it's working, you don't have to do a big shift. It's just more ads, better fulfillment team, better product, more case studies, more testimonials. So it's like squeezing that. But then another thing, it's like almost just like foreseeing where you want the business to go. Like, where do you want to sort of be in like long term, like 4 or 5 years? Because it's like, yeah, cool, email and SMS marketing agency, great. But I think now, honestly, I'm reaching a point where it's like, okay, I want to build this into like not a full stack agency, but an agent, basically like a premier agency for certain sort of disciplines or verticals, you know. And you have sort of this vision of where you want the company to be, where it's like, oh, we want to go be the go-to provider for this service, and this service, have a killer team, and everybody that is in the market knows that we do really, really good and excellent work. I think a really good example of that right now is Jay Wright. He's obviously running his program, and that's different. It's not an agency, but like, man, every founder that's getting on calls is like, oh yeah, we joined Jay Wright's program and it was great, and we're kind of here now. So like, he's built really good market authority. I think for me, it's like just having that being the goal, like putting in the steps in order to get there. So we're figuring out different things with like adding services and potential partnerships with other agencies to kind of, potentially acquire them and bring on sort of their team and services to just be able to expand what it is that we're offering. But it's more just taking a longer term approach, but obviously milking what's working and making sure that stays the main focus day to day. But then like having the strategic planning in place to be like, okay, here's the goal. What are we doing now immediately within the next 6 to 12 months to make sure that we're progressing towards that? So without getting sort of too tactical or specific, adding different services, putting the right players in place, potentially some sort of acquisition of an agency that's already working as well. Just to keep like the long-term vision alive, because it can be so easy to get comfy with like, oh, where we're at now. And it's great. Like, it's cool business. But again, like if you're not actively pushing forward, then what's the point? So it's like that time is going to elapse anyway. Like the next 12 months, 2 years, 3 years, 4 or 5 years. So it's like, why don't we just try and go for the biggest play we possibly can, yeah.
No, I agree.
Where we're at.
I agree. And then you have that market notoriety piece, which is, I think, just being known as someone who's really good and excellent in terms of their service is always something that I think is worth striving for as a service provider. And honestly, I think that's something you've got down pat pretty well. You've always been really focused on delivering the results for clients. In terms of the tracking piece that you mentioned, honestly, like similar to what you said, it starts before you even click launch on the campaign. So you need parameters of, this cost per call is considered healthy. This cost per call is considered dicey. This cost per call is considered bad. And if it gets to this level, then we can no longer tolerate the campaign. And just knowing that before you even go, in terms of breaking down those kind of unit economics behind the funnel, then you can start thinking, okay, well, if I'm in this range of cost per click and this range of click-through rate, then I'm looking pretty good based on the fact that I know my landing page for a VSL funnel is probably going to convert 5-10% maybe, depending on where I'm at. Then you can look at the lag indicator of cost per call. Then you can look at the lag indicator of how do these leads feel on the sales calls. Then you can look at your cost per acquisition. And then on top of that, the thing that you absolutely need, and I wanted to talk to this for a while, but you need to get IROS, because IROS is literally the only thing where you're going to be able to attribute directly from singular ads. You're going to be able to attribute LTV to your campaigns, so you can see which type of clients are being brought in by which type of ads and which type of offers as well. Because with an agency specifically, where you have the difference between a client coming in that's doing, multi 6 figures a year and a client coming in that's doing 8 figures a year is absolutely ridiculous, because their LTV is going to be bigger. You're going to get a bigger result for them. They're going to be better to deal with. And you're going to be able to essentially reverse engineer those really higher level clients compared to, you might have one ad that looks and feels profitable because it's bringing calls, but maybe all the calls that came from that one specific ad have been the unqualified calls that never close. And they close at like 3%. So something that we found, particularly when we were running lead magnets for a specific client, was we had 5 ads that had spent like 12 grand and they generated about 800 to 1,000 leads. I'm just thinking off the top of my head. So we had like 5 ads had generated 800 leads and spent 12 grand on those ads within one campaign. Those had $0 in attributed revenue. $0.
Yeah, that's
and
crazy.
Then the 2 ads that were on top of that, maybe I think they generated like 200 to 300 leads, and they had attributed $80,000 in revenue. So we have this campaign where 5 ads have generated 0 from 12 grand in spend, and then 2 ads had about 5 grand in spend, so less than half the spend, and 80 grand in revenue attributed. So the campaign looks good because it's spent 17 grand, generated 80 grand back. It's like a 4.6 ROAS or 4.5 ROAS.
Yeah.
But 2 ads have done everything, and the other ads in the actual ad account look the exact same because they're generating leads at a cost per lead of pretty good. So Facebook keeps spending on them, but you don't know that because you can't actually connect the lead to the call and to the sale and then to the LTV after that.
Yeah,
so if you're not in that position where you can see that, again, you're flying through space with a compass, you're absolutely screwed, and you need that visibility to make those decisions, not only from actually getting the software set up properly, but also from the point of before that even happens, so you can see all these indicators before the leads are even generated.
Yeah.
So that's my sales pitch, that you need to fix that. Out there as well.
This is sounding like one of those things where it was like back like 12 months ago and you're like, bro, to start the ads, it's like, this is probably the next thing. Cause like, yes, my immediate problem is like getting better tracking. So it's like, I'm not going to, but the difference is this time we won't sit on it for 6 months before we do it. We'll get started on that straight away. Cause it's one of those things where it's like, and straight away, this is just me like thinking out loud. It's like the immediate sort of pushback is like, oh, it's just something to learn. It seems complex. It's like, oh, complex ad tracking, pixels, this and that. But it's all just a lie. It's like you just got to start and figure it out. So yeah, I'm going to jump onto that for sure.
It'll take you maybe like a day to get the learning curve. I'll set you up with my rep there as well. Like the Hyros support is like the best of all time that I've ever dealt with. But yeah, that's pretty much all. That's the only thing I wanted to yap about to you specifically today. But yeah, is there anything else that you wanted to cover that you think we haven't covered that's been super important with you? Or?
No, man. I think we covered a lot. I think it was good. This is good. But it's just like taking it slow, like, and just like, I think main thing as well, especially for like guys in our space as well and young people as well. Like, and I think Hormozy is honestly really good for this as well. Like his whole thing is like, what's the rush? Like it's like, okay, well, we got to scale. But it's like, all right, if it takes you 6 months, 12 months, a year, 2 years longer than you expected, and this is kind of what I'm really realizing now, that like we've got some skin in the game, obviously got some time in the game as well. It's like in 10 years from now, whether it took 2 years or 3 years or 4 years, if you've got a multi-million-dollar company with, exit value, like it's actually doesn't matter. So it's like, you don't need to stress and sweat within the week to week, day to day, even year to year. If it's like, directionally you're correct, like, yes, you might be sort of like kind of going up and down here and there, but if directionally, like if you can look back and you're in a better position than you were 2 years ago, it means you're kind of directionally correct. And usually, like, I think honestly it's just a time thing. It's like you kind of figure stuff out over time, make the right tweaks and pivots, but just probably be patient with, and that's, again, I say this because I'm learning that. It's like I'm so easy falling into the trap of like, oh, we got to get here now. And then what ends up happening is you end up just like cutting corners a little bit. And I've definitely done that in the past. It's like you just, and still do, like you just cut all these corners for like, but if you just take the extra time now, it makes everything become way easier. So it's just adopting a bit of patience and, being consistent and disciplined in that as well, for sure.
Yeah, I think that's a great place to leave it. So we'll call it there. Thanks for listening, everyone. Cheers, Oscar, for jumping on. See you in the next one.